February is Smooch Month, a month dedicated to considering media that falls under the heading of smoochy. Things that are about relationships, forming relationships, building or deepening relationships, and things where a romantic relationship is important. This presents challenges because it might not surprise you, but in video games, despite their breadth of content, they haven't done as much with this element of human interaction as you might think. Oh, there are a lot of games about romance, and a lot of them handle it in either a linear or systemic way that I dislike a lot. For all sorts of common cultural reasons you might be familiar with, romance in video games tends to be about an agent pursuing an object and getting it. Super Mario Bros. And onward. Or Donkey Kong, if you want. None of this is to say that all games that try to be about romance are bad, but there are a lot of games that more or less are replicating the same basic idea, existing in a binary between a language maze or an entirely unrelated linear story. What's more, often romances aren't depicted as if they express a relationship as an interested interaction between two parties who both want something. And this is pretty strange when you consider how much art has been made on this idea and how many forms that art has taken. Like, for example, pop music. Usu, Tatke, Oendan is a game whose name you don't have to shout, but come on, you should want to. You should be shouting in your heart. That is the original progenitor of a game that you might have heard of called Elite Beat Agents. It's a rhythm game on the NDS and 3DS, so the unique interface of the console presented designers with a newish opportunity to make a type of rhythm game. You tap the screen in time and place to correspond with the flow and movement of the music, and that's kind of it. As a game, Oendan benefits immensely from the material realities of the Nintendo DS. If you know what a rhythm game is, you probably can work out how to play Oendan in just a few minutes, even across the language barrier for non-Japanese speakers. In fact, it was that accessibility in part that led to the game being picked up in the West, and enjoyed so much, we got an American localized version of the same game, the Elite Beat Agents. This was in fact so much of a thing that at the end of the credits for Oendan 2, there's a thank you note in English. That approachability is only part of the reason why you can play Oendan without literacy though. Another element is that the NDS doesn't have region locking, so you can just buy a Japanese copy, jam it into your Belgian NDS, I assume you have one of those, and it's going to work, rather than requiring you to pay distributors in your country for your version of this thing that has never been made there. This meant that this game, in all the ways it's very Japanese, is available for you to experience without changing anything about what it is, its cultural framework, its visions of what it wants to say in a story told through its particular framing device. Because that framing device, to a common Western audience member like me, seems at first impression to be completely bananas. In Oendan, you are finding people who need help, then helping them. What kind of people? Well, you might help a kid with their university entrance exams. You might inspire a noodle shop cook to get over his problems with a stray cat. You might bring back the dead for one last dance. You might help a kid avoid wetting the bed in his sleep, or fight a virus, or help Cleopatra build the pyramids. The first game culminates in the Oendan saving the world from an asteroid strike, through the power of rock and roll. What's important about this though, is that in each of these stories, you aren't playing the people the story is about. You're playing cheerleaders. You might be visualizing something from your own perspective, your own familiar framework, and yes, you can unlock those. Those are an option, and one of them's American, so you know she's authentic. But in Oendan, you're not playing a Western-style cheerleader squad. You're playing an Oendan troupe, which is to say, heavily masculine, disciplined cheerleaders who do ferocious poses, stomps, claps, whistles, and shouts. This is a proud, established style of cheerleading in Japan that dates back to samurai times, which is, of course, closer than you think. It's manly cheerleading. In Oendan, you play Oendan, who are more specifically school toughs wearing gakuran and with all the signifiers of being delinquents. This roaming gang finds people who need help, burst into the scene in sometimes wildly inappropriate ways and cheer them on to do their best. You are not competing for the exams. You want the person who is competing for the exams to know that they can do their best. You are not capturing the bank robber. You are encouraging the horse to capture the bank robber because you believe in them. I really think there's a chance that if you heard that sentence, you might think I'm making something up, and I'm really not, and you should probably check this game out. I like it a lot. It's a great game. Oendan comes to my mind so often when I think about trying to find games for Smooch Month. Games about relationships, about expressing the forming and maintaining of a relationship in some way that doesn't end when the characters express an interest in one another. They're pretty rare. I could find more games about rescuing a dog than I could find about working with a partner. And don't mention It Takes Two to me. That's why I came back to this classic rhythm game, Osu Tatsuke Oendan. There are some love stories in Oendan. There's a classic one where an office lady wants to date the office hunk. And did you know that sometimes the office hunk can be a boy? The culmination of their story is her getting his attention in a literal Cinderella reference, backed by the probably somewhat culturally insensitive song Koi no Danso Site. That's also the story in Over the Distance, which is about a ghost coming back from the heaven to apologize to his wife for the fight they had just before he died. It's nice that there's this bookending between these two types of relationship stages, a beginning and sadly an end, and the desire to have that end be a good end. It's not the one that makes me think of Oendan in Smooch Month though. Melody, one of the early levels, is set in a Matsuri festival, where the person we're helping wants to win at doing the festival race, because that will get him respect, and the permission of a girl's crappy dad to marry her. Kinda. So far, so Mario, woman as prize, right? Now I pulled deep for this game, because I think this successfully breaks a lot of my problems with video game romances, though you do have to do some translating to find that. First, you do not control the romantic agents in the story. You're not the boy or the girl, and your relationship to the other has nothing to do with how well you play the game. These two characters are into each other, and their reactions to how well you play is how well you get them towards a goal they both want, where they want to get married. You want to do well because you want them to have their chance to get married well, and you also get this really rewarding tsh sound. They are dating, they are in love, and they are being obstructed by her dad in this one instance. The girl isn't the reward, and the guy isn't your character. She's one of the participants in the race. Your victory is not him getting something, it's them getting what they want because they set up a game event. It's a sweet story, it's about something nice, and in amongst all these games I've been digging through to just find a romance that didn't make me clutch my insides, it stands out. You can read the dad as doing a thing that implies that he thinks he has ownership of his daughter's options for marriage. But translated, it's not quite that simple. After all, he gets involved after the boy says that he'll propose when he wins. In that case, it almost looks like the father is in on the game here, because he just wants the Matsuri competition to be a real competition. When his future son-in-law says, "I'll propose when I win," well, you've got to make winning mean something, right? You've got to show for the Matsuri competition that you're not just doing this for easy reasons. What's more, people think he's being a dick. Strangers get involved and join in to help the protagonists. He goes from carrying the Matsuri on his own, and then... the Matsuri. That's got to be the wrong way to describe that, but I'm too far gone now. And then, inspired by that, school kids and old folks and tourists all join in on the race. If you succeed, the father-in-law is super happy, because he sees it as a good omen for their marriage, which is a thing that happens in these festivals. It's not a, "you shall not marry my daughter." It's a, "well, do a good job then." At the very end, he's not grumbling that this man stole his daughter from him. He's joyfully attending their wedding. And you know what happens when you fail? They don't get married and you failed. That's it. She doesn't leave him. The relationship is not contingent on the race, just the father blessing them here. They were in a relationship beforehand, and there's no reason that ends. The story doesn't need to make this event the contingent requirement for the romance. It is a thing that exists without you, and that you get to help in this instance. And that's nice. It's a big story moment for these two, where you get to show up and encourage them to do their best. But the thing you're encouraging them to do their best at is a public ritual, an event, a game. It's not the make or break. It's not the thing that says, she'll leave you if you don't do a good job. And I think that's really cool. Incidentally, I did consider doing this with Elite Beat Agents instead because, it's slightly more available and it didn't get a sequel. Thing is, it's not got a story like this one did. The closest we get to this song is Queen's I Was Born to Love You, which shows us Leonardo da Vinci harassing Mona Lisa until she agrees to pose for him as a model, which is so much worse as a story.